I thought exile would be quieter, but silence here had weight. It didn't rest. It leaned. Our safe house lay buried in the cliffside ruins of an old solar archive, north rim of the Tarsan expanse. Burnt sandstone bled red under the twin suns. Nothing around us but heat ghosts, abandoned drone husks, and the long-dead static of a war no one even logged. We were off-grid now. Fully. Truly. The kind of off-grid that made your skin itch from the inside. Kaeli was meditating again. Or sleeping. Or both. I couldn't tell anymore. She sat in the center of the dust-washed chamber, legs folded, eyes shut, breathing like a wave machine on lunar rhythm. Around her, little shards of shattered interface glass floated mid-air. Held in place by nothing but her will, or whatever was waking up inside her. She hadn't spoken in hours, not since the meltdown in Grid 9 West. Not since the signal, not since that voice, my voice, called out from a future I wasn't ready to meet. Jaren paced outside, boots crunching the sand. He hadn't stopped moving since dawn. Said he was watching for scout probes. Truth was, he didn't know what to do with himself anymore. He was still wearing the insignia patch from his command sector, half-torn, sun-bleached, soaked in ash and regret. Sometimes he reached up like he was going to rip it off for good. He never did. I recorded a log that night, not for transmission. Just to keep something real. Name, Rael Torma. Location, unknown sector, Tarsan expanse. Date, irrelevant. Status, fugitive. Guardian. Brother. Liar, Companion 1, Kaeli Torma. Companion 2, Jaren. Status complicated. I paused. My voice caught somewhere behind my teeth. We've uncovered something we weren't meant to. Not just memory suppression. Not just failed tech. Something older. Hybrid. Evolving. Kaeli's changing. The system wants her. And something else does too. Something outside the grid. Something that's been waiting. Later, Kaeli opened her eyes. They shimmered faintly, veined with the same soft glow as the dead interfaces she'd lifted. Did you hear it again? I asked, low. She nodded slowly, still unfocused. It's louder now, she whispered. And it's not just you. It's versions. Possibilities. They're crashing into each other. I sat beside her. My shoulder still ached from the drone strike. My nerves were wrecked. But this moment felt sacred. Dangerous. I need to know what's happening to you. Her voice cracked, young, ancient, terrified. So do I. At midnight, the sand began to shift, not naturally. Mechanically, Kaeli bolted upright before I heard a thing. Jaren came flying through the entrance, breath ragged. They found us, he snapped. New pattern. Not scouts. Not drones. Something worse. From the dunes beyond the cliff edge, long shadows unfurled, tall, jointed, slow-moving, hunters. Senya had deployed the Valkyrie class. The ones with the empathic netting, designed to smell out hybrid patterns, no matter how buried. Kaeli stood, and the floating shards around her began to spin. We ran, not through open terrain, that would have been suicide. The hunters didn't track like machines. They tracked like predators. They felt heat. Memory. Intention. That meant the surface was a death trap, so we went down. There was an old access point under the archive. A tunnel carved during the first terraforming guilds. Back when this sector still pretended to have a future. Most maps didn't show it. Jaren had found it 2 days ago by accident, chasing a heat signature on an abandoned relay node. We dropped into the black, one by one. Kaeli didn't need a lamp. Her hands glowed faintly now, not like tech, but like bone remembering light. She led us through jagged corridors and broken thresholds, each room older than the one before. Dust hadn't settled here. It floated, slow, mournful, like the whole place was holding its breath. Jaren spoke first, whisper sharp. These tunnels weren't meant for travel. I nodded, keeping close behind Kaeli. No, I said. They were meant for containment. Because now the walls weren't just steel. They were etched, not with words, but with warning, sigils. Hybrid sigils. Some I'd seen in Kaeli's sketches when her mind unraveled. Others were new. Or ancient. I couldn't tell. Kaeli stopped at one of them, running her fingers over the marks. They knew, she whispered. They knew it would fail. Farther in, we reached a pressure door. Long sealed. Reinforced, and it had Kaeli's birth code carved above the locking mechanism, not painted, carved. I turned to her, voice low, uncertain. Do you want to open it? She didn't answer. Her eyes were distant, like she was listening to something just beyond hearing. Jaren stepped up, impatient. We can't stall. That hunter net is closing. We need a new exit path. But Kaeli reached out, slow, trembling, and placed her palm against the center plate. The door hissed, then clicked, then groaned open. Inside was a chamber built for a secret. The air was cold. Still, and in the center, surrounded by cryosinks and shielding glass, was a cradle, not for a baby, for something else, a hybrid neural core. Still active. Still pulsing. I stepped closer. My breath caught. There was a figure inside the tank. Female. Young. Maybe Kaeli's age. But wrong. Not quite human. Not quite anything else, and her face, it looked like Kaeli, not similar. Identical. Kaeli stumbled backward, her voice a whisper of shattered glass. I don't remember her. But I know her name. What is it? I asked. She closed her eyes. Leora. Jaren looked between us, jaw tight, cloning. No, I said. Not just that. This wasn't a replacement. This was a parallel. Kaeli was shaking now. She was part of the first fork, she said. The first time they tried to map the hybrid mind onto a human frame. I turned to the console, flipping through corrupted logs. Each one was more broken than the last. But one file was intact. Audio only. It was dated 12 years before Kaeli's birth. Subject Leora has shown resistance to control protocols. Empathic surges exceed forecasted range. Core unbonded. Termination pending. Backup subject will be cultivated under standard guidelines. Designation, Kaeli, 2. The log ended. Kaeli was crying now, not loud. Just enough that her shoulders shook. Jaren turned away. He didn't know how to carry this, neither did I, but before I could speak, the air shifted, a low hum rippled through the floor. Not the hunters, not the vault. Kaeli stood. Eyes wide. They're here. Who? I asked. She turned to me slowly. The ones who built this place. The hum deepened, not mechanical. Not alive either. It was something else, like memory caught in the walls, echoing through time, bending space the way grief bends a voice. Kaeli dropped to her knees. Her eyes rolled white. I caught her before she hit the floor. Kaeli. Her body jerked once, then stilled. Hands twitching. Lips parted like she wanted to scream but couldn't. She wasn't seizing. She was somewhere else. Jaren backed toward the door, checking his sidearm. This place is waking up, he muttered. We need to get her out, now. But I wasn't listening. I was watching her face. She wasn't unconscious, she was seeing. Her breath hitched. Then, from her mouth, calm, cold, not her voice at all, log entry 0001, origin sequence initiated. Fork point stable. Vessel 1 compromised. Dream state unspooling. Subject Leora, offline. Subject Kaeli, reassigned. Kaeli's head jerked toward me. Her eyes were open now. But not hers. They shimmered with a light I'd never seen. Pale violet. Ancient, she spoke, but it wasn't her speaking. He tried to stop them. He failed. You're next. The signal will call the others. And they remember pain. Then silence. Her body collapsed against me, limp, shivering. I held her tight. Jaren moved forward again, all bluff and steel. What the hell was that? A bleed, I whispered. From the cradle memory. She's linked to it. The pulse was growing louder now. Rhythmic. Calling something, then, clank, from above, not 1. 3, Jaren swore and turned toward the shaft. Hunter drones. They're coming through the surface. I looked at the console. The system was still hot. I could detonate it. Burn the cradle. Kill the link, but I'd be cutting her off from everything she was becoming. Kaeli stirred in my arms. Rael. Don't. Jaren turned to me, frantic. You want to keep that thing alive while we're being hunted? She's not a thing. I snapped. She's her. And if we destroy this place, we lose every piece of truth they buried. Jaren looked at Kaeli. Then the tank. Then me. You've changed, he muttered. You haven't, I said. That's why we're still alive. We grabbed what we could, 2 interface shards, an old beacon core, and a half-stable echo mask Kaeli said might hide us if the signal trackers got close. I took one last look at the girl in the cradle, still sleeping, still waiting. Then we sealed the vault, not to forget her, but to come back. The drones were already in the upper shaft. Their crawl was metallic, insect-like, fast. Kaeli reached for my hand. Her palm pulsed, and the echo mask flickered to life, bending light. Bending sound. It wrapped around us like a shimmer coat. We became heatless. Quiet. Ghosts. We moved. Jaren guided us through a cutout path he'd mapped last week, old drainage for the terraform guilds. Cramped. Tight. But safe, for now. When we surfaced, the sun had dropped behind the dome rim. The sky was red, almost like it remembered blood. Kaeli hadn't said a word. I sat with her in the shadows, watching her fingers twitch, the light still faint in her veins. What did you see? I asked. She hesitated, then whispered, I think I saw the first one die. And I think she knew it would be me next. She spoke in fragments, never directly, never clearly, but always with the weight of someone who had seen too much and remembered it all. Kaeli didn't sleep that night. She dreamed, but it wasn't hers. I found her curled up by the vent's haft, eyes open, body still. She said my name, she whispered. Not like a stranger. Like I was her. We were camped in an old processing chamber 2 levels beneath the central transit rails. The power grid barely reached this deep. Flickering blue lights. Vents that hissed steam in pulses. Jaren had rigged a perimeter sensor net from scraps, old resistance tricks, but even that gave false readings every few hours. Too many heat signatures, too many watchers. Leora, I said softly, that's what she called herself. Kaeli nodded. She showed me things. Waking up in a tank. Floating. Screaming. But there was no sound. Just pressure. Like something was pushing into her mind, trying to teach her how to think. Her hand twitched, she fought it. For a while. Then she stopped fighting. I looked at her. You think they did the same to you? I think, she murmured, I was made from what was left of her. Jaren had been pacing, chewing the inside of his cheek. He stopped, dropped into a crouch beside us, and pulled out a rusted hex map tablet. Old. Cracked. But still lit. There's someone who might know the full story. He said. Used to be top-tier dev for the first hybrid architecture project. Got purged when she leaked classified models to the outer colonies. Went underground after that. Who? I asked. Jaren tapped the map. A red square blinked near the outer ring of the grid, buried under transit lines that hadn't moved in 20 years. They called her the Archivist. The name meant nothing to Kaeli, but to me. It landed hard. I'd heard it during interrogations back in the war. Always spoken in hushed tones. Someone who remembered everything, not in data, not in files, but in living memory. Neural fusion. Forbidden tech. She's still alive. I asked. According to the last resistance ping, Jaren said. But she won't talk to just anyone. You'll need leverage. Kaeli stood up. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dark. I am the leverage. We moved again. 2 tunnels. 3 misfires with the echo mask. 1 silent encounter with a cleaning drone that shouldn't have been armed but was. We made it past Sector 7's rusted gate into the lower lift chamber. There, Kaeli collapsed again. Same twitch. Same flash of violet light. I caught her. Her eyes rolled back, and her voice came out strained. Layered. They stripped me down to language. Made me forget my mother's name. Rebuilt my soul in algorithm. Do not let them do this again. She came back sobbing, not because of pain, because she remembered something that didn't belong to her, but felt like it did. I held her, whispered, you're still you. No matter what they used to build you. But I wasn't sure if that was true. and in her silence. Neither was she. We reached the outer vault gate by morning. It was silent, covered in vines from below, growth that shouldn't exist inside the grid. A biosurge. Wild. Untamed. Living. Jaren scanned the lock plate. Dead, he muttered. She's either gone or sealed it from inside. Kaeli stepped forward. She didn't touch it, just stood close. The vines moved, and the gate slid open. Inside, low lights, old wood, walls lined with memory chips and broken helmets, and in the center of it all, sitting by a candle made from synth wax and carbon dust, was her, the archivist, hair silver, eyes cyber blue, voice soft as shattered glass. "You brought the girl," she said. "Good. I've been waiting 20 years for her." The archivist didn't stand, she didn't smile, she just watched us, like we were entries in a ledger she'd been updating for decades, something inevitable. Kaeli stepped forward first. "Do you know who I am?" The archivist tilted her head. "I know who you were supposed to be." Her vault smelled of solder smoke and memory decay. A dozen broken hardlines ran through the ceiling like veins. Everything was analog, deliberately. No uplinks. No echoes. No surveillance. You could feel it in the silence. She gestured for us to sit. Kaeli stayed on her feet. "They called it Project Leora," the archivist said, voice dry, surgical. "The first attempt to blend human emotion with predictive intelligence. The theory was simple: if you could teach a system to feel, you could teach it to anticipate rebellion." Jaren scowled. "I thought it was about hybrid warfare." The archivist chuckled bitterly. "That was the excuse. The real goal was assimilation. Memory fusion. Create someone who could survive every loyalty test before they were even born." Her eyes flicked to Kaeli. "They failed. Over and over. Until you." Kaeli's voice was barely above a whisper. "Who was Leora?" The archivist leaned forward. "She was the prototype. The first to almost work. They kept her in a sealed memory loop, tried to overwrite her dreams, her language, her grief. But grief is the one thing the system couldn't model." She tapped the side of her head. She remembered anyway. I felt the cold sink in again. That word, remembered, had started to mean something different in the grid. It wasn't just recall. It was resistance. A weapon. A fracture point. Kaeli hugged her arms. "I've seen her. In flashes. I think. She's still inside me." The archivist nodded. "She is. And she's not alone." Jaren stood up sharply. "Wait. Are you saying there are others?" The archivist didn't blink. There were 12 attempts after Leora. Only one reached cognitive synthesis. Her eyes returned to Kaeli. "You." Kaeli backed away. "I didn't ask for this." "No one ever does," the archivist said, softly. "But if you don't use what's inside you, they will." A tremor shook the floor, dust fell from the ceiling in threads. I reached for my comm patch. No signal, of course. But Jaren's sensor array was still running. He checked the feed. 2 scout-class drones. Civilian shells. No weapons. On the surface. He paused, "But they're scanning for biosigns." "They know we're here," I said. The archivist stood slowly. "If you leave now, you can lose them in the subflood tunnels. But once you cross into the fracture zone, there's no coming back." Kaeli turned to her. "What happens there?" The archivist looked at her, really looked. Not like a stranger. Like a mother seeing a child before she could stop herself. "You start remembering who you were meant to be." We didn't waste time. Jaren packed the hex map. I slid the synth rod back into my belt. Kaeli lingered for a second, like she wanted to say something more. The archivist beat her to it. "Kaeli," she said gently, "listen to me. You are real. They built you from shadows. But what you do now, that's yours." As we fled down the lower causeway, I glanced back one last time. The gate was already closing, and for a moment, just a flicker, I saw the archivist place her hand on the wall beside her, as if she was remembering something she couldn't bear to say aloud. We entered the fracture zone just past midnight. No lights. No voices. Just a thin current of static that clung to our skin like ash. The tunnels down here weren't mapped, not even on Jaren's deck. Every corridor we passed looked like a failed memory, half erased and bleeding into the next. This place wasn't meant to be seen, Jaren muttered. No, I said. It was meant to be forgotten. Kaeli moved differently now, not cautiously, deliberately, like the shadows were familiar. Like she knew what was coming, even before it came. She didn't speak much. Just kept one hand on the wall, fingers tracing unseen circuits as we passed broken doors and collapsed nodes. I caught up beside her. You all right? She shook her head. I don't know what's mine anymore. The zone pulsed beneath us, echoes of old grid code ran like nerves through the metal. Scraps of voice. Laughter. Screams. None of it made sense on its own. But when Kaeli walked near it, the fragments reacted. One of them glitched into being, a child's voice, stuttering through static. Mom? Are you there? I think I messed up. Don't tell them, please. Then silence. Kaeli stopped cold. I remember that voice, she whispered. But I've never heard it before. We found the chamber 2 levels down, a dome cracked open like a broken eye, wires spilling out. Inside were rows of frozen tanks, some shattered. Others humming faintly. Biotech husks hung in half-melted suspension. Faces that looked almost human, almost. One tank was still active. The figure inside twitched. I stepped closer. Jaren yanked me back. Don't. It's linked. To what? I asked. He tapped the tank's ID seal. Delta 3 protocol. Memory host fusion. If it wakes everything it was ever connected to. Kaeli walked right up to the glass. She's scared. Inside the tank was a girl no older than 12. Hair floating around her face like silver thread. Skin patched with interface ports. Eyes fluttering. She wasn't fully conscious, but she wasn't fully gone either. She's not a soldier, Kaeli said. She's a lock. Jaren frowned. A lock for what? Kaeli reached for the seal, and then the lights changed, red, every bulb. Every wall line. Even the temperature shifted, like the grid was suddenly watching. A low tone began to hum from the walls. I turned to Jaren. That's a system alert. He was already moving. We need to go. Now. Too late, a form dropped from the ceiling, silent, silver, and wrong. Not a drone. Not fully machine. Not fully anything. It landed in front of us and straightened with the grace of a human, but its face was a mirrored plate, and when it spoke, it used Kaeli's voice. Directive, assimilate. Kaeli flinched. That's my tone pattern. My neural ID. Jaren's eyes widened. They built a copy of you. The mirror thing lunged. I barely got Kaeli out of the way in time. Jaren fired a flash round. It slowed the thing, but only for seconds. Kaeli turned toward it and screamed. Not sound. Force. A wave of emotional data, ripping through the air like fire. The mimic staggered, paused, and then mimicked the scream right back. Kaeli dropped to her knees, holding her head. They didn't just copy me, she gasped. They bound me to it. I dragged her behind a broken tank. Jaren rigged a voltage flare. The next time the thing advanced, it triggered the surge. Sparks lit the chamber. The mimic stuttered, and vanished into the dark. We didn't wait to see if it was dead, we ran. In the outer hallway, Kaeli clutched her side. Something beneath her skin was moving. Not bleeding, glowing. I think the fracture zone is waking me up, she said through clenched teeth. Then we need to get you out of here, I said, but she didn't move. Instead, she pointed behind me. Rael. Look. On the wall was a phrase, etched by hand into the alloy. She is the gate. Underneath it, 3 more words, my name, and a date, a future date. Kaeli's breaths came fast, shallow, like she was running in place but couldn't move. The glowing beneath her skin pulsed erratically. As if something was trying to crawl out, or deeper in. I don't know how much longer I can hold this, she whispered, voice cracking. It's like 100 voices screaming inside me at once. I reached for her hand. You're not alone. We'll figure this out. Together. She looked up, eyes fierce but haunted. I hope you're right, Rael. Because whatever's coming. It's bigger than any of us. Jaren paced the supply chamber, data crystal in hand. I decoded part of the sequence, he said finally. Someone left a map. A pathway in the system. It's old, before Senya took control, but it shows a way to isolate the hybrid signal. Can we use it? I asked. If we can get Kaeli to that node, maybe. But it won't be easy. The grid's already hunting her. Kaeli's grip tightened on my arm. They don't just want to control me. They want to become me. The memory chamber was an old relic from the early hybrid experiments, rows of crystal nodes suspended in darkness, humming faintly. Senya greeted us there with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome to your reckoning, Kaeli," she said softly. "This is where you'll confront your reflection." Kaeli's jaw clenched. "I'm ready." We stepped inside. The world dissolved, shapes warped into fractal patterns. Echoes of forgotten faces whispered from the void, and then, there she was, a mirror image of Kaeli, but darker. Her eyes gleamed with cold calculation. "Who are you?" Kaeli demanded. "I am what they made of you." The shadow of the gate, the reflection said. I watched as Kaeli's expression flickered between fear and fury. "You think you can control me?" Kaeli spat. "I am not a weapon." The mirror smirked. "You are whatever I say you are." A battle unfolded, not of fists or fire, but of memories and wills. Kaeli pushed back with bursts of light, fragments of her past shining like beacons. The mirror countered with twisted lies. Shadows drawn from Kaeli's deepest doubts. I saw her falter, but then, a spark, the part of Kaeli that was pure, the child who still believed in freedom, rose up. The mirror shattered. We collapsed from the chamber. Kaeli gasped, clutching her chest. "It's not over," she said. "But for the first time, I think I understand. The gate isn't just me." Jaren nodded. "There's a network. Others like you. And they're waking." I looked at Kaeli. "We're not alone." The first breath I took outside the dome felt like ash, not the burning kind, something older. Settled. Buried. Like the world beyond Grid 9 West had been holding its breath for 1,000 years, waiting for someone to step out and remember. Kaeli stood beside me, her coat clutched tight around her shoulders. Her eyes scanned the horizon, miles of dead scrubland, fractured buildings half swallowed by dust, old war ruins laced with warning glyphs. And beyond that, mountains veiled in static. Not clouds. Static. We were outside the grid, we were fugitives now. Jaren pulled the map slate from his coat and tapped the screen. A narrow green trail pulsed faintly, an old access route. "This leads to Station Cinder," he said. It was part of the hybrid evacuation corridor before the Dome Act. "If there are any records of the other Gateborn, they'll be there." Kaeli glanced at him. "And if it's a trap?" He hesitated. "Then we're out of time either way." We moved at night. The Hunter-class drones had already begun their sweep, sleek black bodies slicing silently through the sky, scanning for heat signatures. Kaeli wore a pulse dampener, but it flickered every time she touched the earth too long, like the ground itself wanted to call her back. We passed through forgotten refugee zones, tiny hollow shelters built from grid scrap and memory walls. Most were abandoned. Others held people too afraid to leave and too broken to fight. One woman watched us from behind a mesh curtain. Her eyes met Kaeli's, and she whispered, "Another one. Like my son." Kaeli froze. I turned to her. "You okay?" She shook her head slowly. "I think we're not just looking for others like me. I think they've been trying to hide." We reached Station Cinder by the 4th day. It wasn't a station. Not anymore. Just a cracked underground bunker shaped like a starburst, half sunk in the rocks. Jaren found the hatch beneath a rusted comm tower. The door hissed open, and we descended. Inside, the walls were covered in murals, drawings etched by hand. Children with glowing eyes. Trees growing from metal. A gate opening into light. A war. Kaeli moved slowly, brushing her fingers against the images. Then we found the sleeping chamber, rows of cryo beds. Most long dead, but one was still active, a heartbeat, a hybrid child, not much older than Kaeli had been when I first found her. Skin like bronze light. Veins glowing faintly, and beside the bed, a worn message etched into the floor, "Let her wake only if there is still hope." Kaeli knelt beside the child. "She's like me." Jaren scanned the logs. Her name was Isrin. Designated Gate Key Theta. She was part of the first wave. "She's alive," Kaeli whispered, and the child stirred. Isrin's eyes opened like she was drowning. She gasped once, sharply, and her whole body convulsed in the cryo bed. The lights in the chamber dimmed, then flared. Jaren pulled back with his weapon half raised. I stepped in front of Kaeli, but the girl didn't attack. She sat up slowly, dazed. Breathing hard. Her eyes glowed faint violet, familiar and not. Not like Kaeli's. Sharper. Older. Kaeli stepped forward. You're safe. You're not alone. Isrin blinked at her, then at me. Where's Senya? She asked, voice dry and low. Kaeli stiffened. She's still hunting us. Isrin's mouth twisted into something between fear and recognition. Then the fireline has already fallen. We gathered in the chamber's old med room, doors sealed. Pulses on standby. Isrin sipped water slowly, cradling the flask with trembling fingers. She didn't ask who we were. She already knew. You're Gateborn, she said to Kaeli. Kaeli nodded. And you, she said to me, you don't belong here. I smiled grimly. You're not wrong. She told us what she remembered, fragmented, broken pieces of history buried in her mind. Of a program far older than any of us guessed. Of hybrids like her born not to infiltrate, but to protect. Raised in secret. Designed to bridge two worlds, the digital and the organic. They called us keys, Isrin whispered. But most of us never made it past calibration. Senya said we were unstable. That we'd fracture the grid. But we weren't broken. We saw things the system wanted buried. Kaeli leaned forward. Like what? Isrin looked at her. Looked through her, the signal. The one beyond the gates. It's calling us back. We barely had time to process what that meant. The walls groaned, then the siren screamed. A drone swarm had breached the outer ridge. The hunter class, Jaren barked, move. We grabbed what we could and fled down the old emergency tunnel. Kaeli and Isrin stayed close, their breath matching pace, like they were bound by something deeper than time. I brought up the rear, sealing doors behind us, trying to slow the advance. But those things didn't slow. They cut through steel like it was cloth. Then came the fireline. We emerged into the open dust, East Ridge, just past nightfall, and we saw it, a wall of burning drones, hovering in formation, blocking our path. Red lights flickering across their shells like dying stars. Kaeli froze. We're boxed in. Jaren raised his pulse rifle. I'll draw them off. You two get the girls. No, I cut in. I do it. He stared at me. Rael, I've done worse with less. I pulled the flare beacon from my pack and thumbed it. A blinding white light burst into the air. Every drone turned toward me, and I ran. I don't remember how long I sprinted, just the sound of the swarm. The heat biting at my back, the static scream of the drones, then something hit me, hard. I crashed into the dirt, blackness, silence, and then, a voice, faint. Familiar, Rael. You weren't supposed to do that. I opened my eyes. Senya stood over me, but it wasn't her body, it was a projection. Light and dust, behind her. The real drones closed in. She smiled. You're still playing the wrong game, Rael. But that's okay. She'll learn. They all do, eventually. Then the light cut out, the world came back in pieces. A hum. Cold. Then light, too bright. I blinked, but nothing changed. I wasn't blinking at all. I couldn't feel my face. They'd plugged me into a sink, a memory chamber. I'd seen the tech once, during the war. Used on prisoners. Or traitors. You don't need a knife when you can make a man relive the worst moment of his life on loop. The room looked like my childhood, Sector 3, Upper Hab. My brother laughing, our mother bent over the stove, steam rising like ghosts. It smelled real. Felt real. It wasn't. I stood in place, unable to move, and then it twisted. Jaren screamed, not as a child, now. Present, blood poured from a wound in his chest. I reached for him, but my body stayed still. The system wouldn't let me help. It only made me watch. Kaeli ran past, screaming my name, then fire swallowed her. Everything went black, then restarted. Stop, I growled. You don't get to do this. But my voice was just static. A soft click echoed in the chamber, then a new voice. Her voice, Senya, I warned you, Rael. You were walking into a structure you couldn't map. And now the walls are yours. Her image shimmered into view, just her silhouette. I tried to glare, but the system dulled everything. Pain was smeared, not sharp. Anger was swallowed. You're wasting time, I spat. I'm not the key. No, she said calmly. But you still carry echoes. And I need them aligned. She reached out, and with a wave of her hand, rewound the memory, this time. It wasn't Jaren, it was my father, bleeding. Begging, the loop began again, far away, through flickering static. I heard another voice, soft. Breaking through the noise, Kaeli's voice, Rael. Listen to me. You have to fight it. The sync vibrated. For a second, the false world cracked. A sliver of real light poured through, then static swallowed it again. Elsewhere, Kaeli stumbled backward, breathing hard. The uplink spark burned against her palms.